Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a Learning and Growing webinar on what is student wellness. Our presenter today is Kaylin Green of Empire State College. My name is Sidra, and I'm going to be your moderator for today for Hawks Learning. We will have a live Q&A session after the presentation, so please enter any questions you have into the Q&A module as we go, and we'll be sure to answer them at the end. I'll now hand it over to our presenter.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start sharing my screen, introduce our topic for today, and also tell you why I'm qualified to be discussing student wellness. Okay, so today's topic, what is student wellness? This is a Hawks Learning webinar. I am Dr. Kaylin Green. I am currently the Assistant Professor of Addiction Studies at SUNY Empire State College. But before I got into the academic role, I was and am still a New York State credentialed alcoholism and substance abuse counselor. So I worked for many years in the clinical field, helping clients deal with emotional, mental, and physical crisis situations. So this is kind of the perfect combination of my areas of expertise of working in the clinical field as well as working in the academic field. And I know in all my different adjuncting jobs, I had a lot of professors and instructors come to me and say, what do I do when a student is in crisis? I don't know how to handle this. So I love sharing this information. A lot of instructors who have never been in the clinical field simply don't know where to go when they have a student who needs that type of support. So this is how we learn about those type of supports, right? So first, how do we find the wellness center? If we're an on-campus school, we should be asking around so that we know where our wellness center is. It is important that you as the instructor become familiar with what building it is, who works in that office, the hours of the office. This way, when someone comes to you, when a student comes to you with a wellness situation, you're able to direct them exactly where they need to go. You want that transition to be smooth and easy for that student because the student is currently dealing with a potential crisis situation. If you're an online college, you would go to usually it's on the college home site under wellness center, emotional support type of centers, and find the contact or the website to direct the student to immediately. That way you have that information at your fingertips so that when you need to use it, you're not scrambling to find it for the student. The student is already in an emotional or crisis situation. You want to make sure that you have those resources readily available, or at least you know where to send the student as soon as possible. The focus is on the student's overall health. What do you do if you don't have a wellness center at your school? Not all schools do. When we think about overall health of our students, we want to make sure that we are talking to our colleagues about starting a basic website for health and wellness centers for students. This doesn't have to be a whole silo position or a whole department in the college. This can simply be a homepage that's part of your college website that is updated with suicide hotline phone numbers, mental health crisis hotline phone numbers, addiction hotline phone numbers, other local resources that your students can go to and pick up when they need those type of resources. Something important to remember is when we're talking about wellness centers, we're talking about an overall health is a holistic approach, not just physical well-being. We're talking about mental, emotional, financial stability, as well as physical type of well-beings. So what makes up our health? Our health is so much more than our students bringing in a doctor's note saying, oh, they were sick for a couple of days, so they need an extra extension on their assignments. I think oftentimes that's where our mind immediately goes to, is that physical type of situation. But the wellness center in health is made up of mental health, emotional health, physical health, as well as crisis situations, such as domestic violence or emotional distress. Mental health can include diagnosable mental health conditions as well as undiagnosed conditions. I know as an instructor, oftentimes I get students coming in saying, oh, you know, I have depressive disorders, or I have ADD, but I'm not diagnosed as it. So they can't get formal disability accommodations for those disorders. It is our job to respect someone else's mental health symptoms, even if they don't have a formal diagnosis. Now, I know this can be very frustrating, and our first sense is, well, if it's not formally diagnosed, I can't do anything about it as an instructor. We can, though, right? We can show compassion. We can show leniency the best that we can with somebody. In the mental health world, the stigma is still real. As an advocate for mental health, I'm working hard to lower that stigma, get rid of it altogether as a hopefully in the future, so that people feel comfortable talking about mental health symptoms so that they can go out and get the help for it. But because we still have such a hard stigma regarding mental health and seeking help for it, a lot of people do not seek help for it. And that can hinder their ability to 100% commit to college level classes. So this is where we come in as understanding and respecting people's mental health differences. Emotional health is our ability to handle stressful situations, right? When we're talking to students, they're working full time, they have families, they're caregivers, they're working evenings, they have pets at home, they're paying rent, they're paying their bills. Emotional health is stressful situations and how we can handle that. When they're now adding in college level classes, this adds an entire layer of stress on their already stressful lives. An example of this is students can get very stressed out regarding grades. Obviously, right? We've all been through it before. A grade is inputted incorrectly. The test doesn't grade it properly. We put in a 1-0 instead of 1-0-0, a 10 instead of 100 by accident. It happens. We know how easy it is to change those things in our grade books, right? Grade books they are pencil and paper, they are computers, they can easily be adjusted. Students don't understand that. When a student sees a grade that they were not expecting, they can get extremely stressed out, and it can really push them over their handle sometimes and what they're able to currently take on in their life. We need to remember that students can get very emotional and stressed out, and it's our job to guide them back to a level playing field and explain to them what's going on so that we can work on the situation together as a team. We need to remember that students are fitting college into their already busy schedules. Many have mental health struggles or emotional health situations in their personal lives. Just because we are not aware of situations in a student's life doesn't mean they're not happening. I think oftentimes when students bring to us a death in the family or a struggle or a current situation, we only think about those students as going through situations because those are the only ones that are telling us about it. We must remember majority of our students are dealing with, as we all do in life, certain mental health, emotional, or financial situations that's causing them stress. Just because they're not bringing it to our attention does not mean they're not dealing with them. Okay, so we need to remember that we are here to support our students in an academic sense first, but also we are a part of their life. If we can navigate them or give them proper resources, they can utilize those resources to become healthier in a holistic approach so that then their grades are strengthened because of the other resources that they're currently utilizing. I understand that we're not clinical counselors as instructors. I have a very interesting background, so I bring that clinical piece to my teaching, but I understand that we're not all clinicians, right? We must always have our ears open for possible crisis situations. That is our job as being involved in the human service field. As instructors, we are human service workers. We have dedicated our lives to working and supporting other humans. So we must remember that we can be our ears open for hints or clues of possible crisis situations. We can address and send students in the right directions for those resources, whether it be our college's wellness center, a wellness website, or simply telling students, hey, I know this addiction crisis hotline number, write it down, here you have the resource. But providing those resources is a really big deal for someone who's currently in a crisis situation, because when we're in a crisis situation, our adrenaline is rushing, our focus is not there. Biologically, we are not able to focus on the solution to the problem, okay? Which is why it's so important when we know we're in crisis to maintain our composure so that our brain can properly think. But if a student comes to you already in crisis, they're not able to think things through. So we need to be that that calm, the sounding board, so that we can think of solutions or resources to provide to that student. And sometimes it's as simple as, well, did you Google the mental health crisis hotline? No, I didn't think about that, because they're already in crisis. They're not going to think about those type of things. That's our job to help provide those resources. We must also show respect for situations our students are going through. It is our job, literally, to help them graduate and navigate them towards that end goal of graduation. Sometimes this means being a little more lenient and respectful of changes in their personal lives. I think we've all had students that they were strong in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the term, or the last term of their program. We're seeing changes in them. This is where we can be alert when we see those changes. Oftentimes, the student is struggling with emotional, mental health, domestic violence situations, death or loss in the family, and their home situation is going to reflect their work or their quality of work or their consistency of work in their college level classes. We can be on the lookout for this. And when we start to see some symptoms of quality or consistency of work dropping, sometimes as simple as sending an email to the student saying, hey, this is Dr. Green. I've noticed your quality of work has changed a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Is there anything I can do to help you? Sometimes just extending that branch can really open a student up to saying, actually, yes, I just changed jobs. I don't have insurance anymore. And now I'm not getting my proper mental health medications. Okay, now we're on the same page. Now we can work towards, here's a resource to get medications. Here's this. But that is part of our responsibility, to be aware of our students' holistic approach and be on the lookout for little signs or warning signals when we can. Also, know your state crisis hotline numbers. Every state has them. There are countrywide ones. And at the end of the presentation, I will give you a couple of global ones to be, USA ones to be aware of. But those are some things that we can write down, have on a sticky note, post right in our office for easy access, because they are life-saving phone numbers that can really change the outcome for a student in a crisis situation. So what makes up wellness? Wellness is anything and everything that we do or need to do in order to live functionally in our everyday lives. And that is that key word, functionally. Okay, there is no perfect way of living, right? There is no perfection, but it's how do we live in a functional way that we can accomplish what we want with the resources that we have and move on to the next goal. This list is unique for everybody and can change during the term. Student struggles can ebb and flow, which is why having a wellness center is so helpful for them to have access to resources whenever they need them. First, I think a lot of the ones that we often think about is emotional, mental, and physical health. And we've already kind of reviewed those. So what I want to review next are the ones that oftentimes we don't think about, or we don't think about because it's not part of our job as a instructor or a professor. So the one, food insecurity. This is important to locate your local food banks or state supplemental nutrition assistance program. Something as simple as having that phone number, so that if you start a conversation with the student about food insecurities, well, they're saying, well, I lost my job and I'm having difficulty, concentrating. Well, why are we having difficulty concentrating? Well, to be quite honest, I haven't had a full meal in about a week now. This is a warning sign where we can reach out and connect the student with the support network. With either, have you gone to your local food bank? This is the address for the local food bank in your city, or this is the phone number for how to contact and start the application for nutrition assistance programs. It's not our job to do the actual connecting. I completely understand that, but it is our job to offer those resources. We can at least support the student by saying, here's a phone number. It's up to you to make the call and do the paperwork to get it done, but we can at least offer that quick communication so that they know where to go. You would be so surprised how many people have no idea that they are eligible for nutrition assistance programs, money, or free food from the local food bank. People just don't know unless they're told, unfortunately. These are topics that are not talked about in social media. They're not shared in the news. They are hidden resources. They should not be hidden, but the reality is nobody talks about them. It's a very taboo topic to talk about. So we as instructors need to verbalize those resources and be aware of them so that we can share them when our students need them. Unemployment. Unemployment is part of what makes up our wellness, because that's how people put food on their table and a roof over their heads. Wellness is also a huge part of the pride and respect that we have for ourselves and our self-esteem. If somebody has, or a student has been working for years and has lost their job for whatever reason, that unemployment can cause a lot of self-esteem issues, not to mention financial problems as well. So being aware of either know where your college's career center is. All colleges have a career center. Be aware of who's the contact for the email address to say, hey, if a student lost a job, contact Rob in the career center. They are pros. It is literally their job to get students jobs, okay? Oftentimes students think the career center is only focused on getting me a job after I graduate in my degree field. That's just not true. The career center is there to get students jobs at any point at their time in the college. Students don't know that. It's our job to share that information with them. Also, be aware of your local one-stop career stop in your city. Those are free resources put on by the government that students, anybody can go to get resume building, cover letting, interview practicing, and connecting them to local jobs. But us being aware of where these resources are, again, quick, here's the phone number for your local one-stop career center. Give them a call. See if they have any openings locally that you can pop into while you're searching for your dream job. But having that bridge gap can really, really help students handle the stress of what they're going through when they meet unemployment. The next one is childcare. This can be a very difficult one for single parents or parents who have, a household of help. But again, when they're trying to include college classes and the work that goes along with that, with their already busy schedule of childcare, this can cause a lot of stress. Do a quick search for your government assistance regarding childcare. Almost every town, city, state has some type of program. Know what that is, have the phone number, have the website, have it at your fingertips to offer for students. This is also a reminder to be lenient and respectful of students who are also caregivers. It's very easy to, when a student emails you on Sunday night and the assignment is due on Sunday and they say, hey, I need an extra day or two. My kid is sick and I haven't been able to get any sleep. It's very easy to say, well, then we should have started the assignment earlier, or do your homework after the kid goes to bed. This is not how life works, right? When kids are sick, they don't give parents a rest. It's not reality. And when they do give the parents a rest, their parents need to sleep and function as well, because they also usually have jobs to do. So this is just a reminder to be lenient when you can, when you have a student that has child situation or childcare issues arise. They're not choosing to have childcare issues. It is extremely stressful on the person. So giving a little bit of leniency can really go a long way. Even if it's an extra 1 day or 2 days, this can just offer the student a day where they can get help or caregiver, or one more day for their child to get better and not be as sick. Next, internet needs. We don't always think about this. I know I've definitely been guilty of this. When a student says, oh, my internet's been out a couple of days, my first response is go to your local library, go to your local coffee shop. That is a solid response. A lot of times students don't think about, I can just go to my library and get free internet, or I can go to the local coffee shop and get free internet. So reminding students that sometimes we can get a little bit creative, right, on where we get access to internet, but also being aware that not all people, depending on where they live, can have easy to access internet. Being respectful of that, just being aware of that. Also, many colleges do offer laptop loan programs. Being aware of who at your college, if you offer that type of program, who is the contact for that? A lot of times students start school, you have no idea how many students in your classes are doing full 3-page papers on their cell phones. It is absolutely crazy. If you ask your students, how many of them will say, oh, I do all my work on my cell phone. I type everything out. That is a normal practice now. But we also know there's a much more stressful way of doing things. It's not as easy or quick to do things. They're spending more time going through those assignments now. So if you have a laptop loan program, let your students be aware of that. They may have no idea that type of resource exists, and that could make their entire college experience so much quicker, so much smoother for them. And again, the goal is to get them graduated. Find last piece here on the outside of wellness, or what's part of wellness, is housing. Being aware of your local homeless shelters or government programs that you can send your students to if they express housing struggles. Housing struggle is a very touchy topic to speak about with people. They can get very defensive. It really hurts someone's self-esteem when they don't have stable housing. So if you get any type of hints or clues that someone might be not having stability of housing, throwing out those resources, offering those resources without judgment. It is not someone's choice usually to be in a homeless situation or to be in a couch surfing situation. Stability is really the core of how we're able to focus on all the wonderful things in life that we want to accomplish. It is also important for us to talk about our own health and our own wellness, right? Our own health and our own wellness are crucial for us to provide health and wellness to our students. The old airplane situation comes into play. You must have your own oxygen mask on first before helping the person next to you. Because if you don't have yours on, if you suffocate, you can't help anybody else. Okay. So we need to always make sure that our own wellness, our own self-care is constantly happening so we can offer help when we need it. If our health and wellness are not in a solid, positive, stable spot, we're not going to be able to help struggling students when they're in their time of need. We're not going to be able to teach them insightful ways, and we're not going to be able to teach interesting courses and doing our jobs if we don't have that mental health wellness for ourselves. This means giving us our own balance of health, work, and personal time. And I know we all talk about how many meetings have you been in, department meetings, self-care, balancing personal time. This is, if anything you take out of this one presentation, take this as a personal check reminder. What is your work-life balance like right now? Is it in a healthy spot? Is there something to adjust? Make that adjustment, not just for yourself, but so you can be a better resource and support for your students. This allows you to be better at your job in that holistic approach. And I know it's easy to say. We have a lot to do as instructors. I respect that. But again, if you don't put on your oxygen mask first, you can't help the person next to you. Okay. These are some countrywide hotline numbers, things for you to be aware of. We have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 24/7. There's a phone number there. Or you dial 988. That is a new thing that happened in the last year. It is fabulous. So 911 for physical emergencies, 988 is a National Suicide Prevention Hotline immediate. We also have the National Domestic Abuse Hotline, again, 24/7, the number is right there. But again, every town, every state has their own internal crisis mental health hotlines. Be aware of these, do a quick 5-minute search, write those numbers down, put them on a sticky note, post them above your computer so that you have them when you need them. When someone comes to you in a crisis situation, that is not the time to be frantically typing and looking for where these numbers are. That is a time to focus on how can I help the student immediately in this crisis and provide them the resources that will help them get through it. So I welcome any questions, any topics of discussion anyone would like to have now. This is really a great time to have a bit of an honest, open chat about what type of wellness resources we currently have at our schools, what we would like to do, or how do we develop these skill sets.
We do have one question.
Wonderful.
What what do I do if I'm not comfortable talking to a student about a crisis situation?
Great. Um, if we if we're not experienced in crisis situations, and somebody, whether it be a family member or a student, brings us a crisis situation, that can be a very difficult or uncomfortable situation to be in. This is where we need to remind ourselves to react in a positive way, in a calm way. The person is already going through crisis or high emotional or mental health alert. It is our job to kind of try to balance that a little bit. And this is not a place where we give clinical advice, especially if we're not a clinician, right? This is the time to be human and say, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's think about what can we do right now to de-escalate the situation. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting down with that person and counting to 10. These simple de-escalation techniques can bring the person who is in a very heightened crisis situation down to a place where they can verbalize what's going on and then start brainstorming with you what they can do right now to help ease their situation. This also gives you time to look up those phone numbers or resources and provide those to the student, whether it be scribbling the phone number down on a piece of paper, or if they're in your office, typing up an email with a list of all the resources there and sending it over to their email address. We never really, whether we're working in our actual college in the role of a mentor or professor or instructor, or if we're just home meeting someone or a friend or family member who's going through a crisis, we always want to act as respectful of their situation. Whatever they're going through is causing them crisis. That situation may not cause you crisis, okay? But we have to respect that everyone's level of accepting or handling crisis situations is different and is unique. So when we hear the crisis going on, we must remember to be respectful, appreciate and accept their crisis situation, try to de-escalate it to a point where we can have a conversation about it, and then properly brainstorm those next steps. When we're in a high crisis situation, our brain chemicals are different and is not going to allow us to have proper conscious thought about rational thinking. This is how the brain works. It's fight or flight, right? One of the two there. And when we're in crisis, fight or flight is usually not the best answer. So we need somebody to help counterbalance us so that we can brainstorm the next step and then get them those proper resources.
How do we know when all we've provided enough resources and like enough's enough? Like you've given as much consolation as you can, to the point that you've bent over backwards as much as you could. When do you know when that's enough?
This is a great question. This is a challenging question, right? We have students who they take and they take and they take and they take and they take, and then suddenly we're here going, I don't have anything left to give, right? As an instructor, your job is to provide the resources. Your job is not to bring the client to a facility, okay? Your job is to connect the student to the proper wellness center. The wellness center worker might have more leeway in what they can provide. You might have a licensed clinician, you might have a social worker in your wellness center who can do more of that hands-on care. After you provide the phone numbers or the email or the address for those resources, it's up to the student to utilize them. We cannot make a student get help. That is not, even as a licensed counselor, I cannot make a client get help. It is my job to provide the resources, offer them, and then it is up to the client or the student to utilize those resources. And especially instructors in a human service type of field, we want to offer a lot of help. And we can offer the help, but we can't do the work for them. That's not our role as the instructor. And it's also important for us to remember what our role is as the instructor. We provide the resources, we can check up on them, but it's not our job to do the work for the student. And if the student is coming at us a little bit more intensely that they want more help, this is where we must rely on the wellness center. Have you reached out to those phone numbers that I gave you? Okay, what do they say? Okay, we have to try to move them over to the proper resources because we are not in that acting role as a counselor.
Thank you. Do you have any closing remarks?
I would like to thank everyone who is either here A live or B watching this as a recording. Being aware of our students' overall wellness, the holistic wellness, as well as our own, is a really, really important thing for us to help our fellow humans as we are in the human service field as instructors. And especially around the holiday season, as counselors and case managers, we see a very high spike in mental health symptoms, suicide ideations, self-harming situations. So holidays can bring a lot of stress for people. The seasonal depression is a real thing too. The weather's getting worse, it's getting darker out. People's mental health can rely on those type of situations. So it is important. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being open to being aware of this. And keep your eyes and ears open. And also share this information with your colleagues, right? The only way to break down the stigma that's attached to mental health is by talking about it openly and freely so that people don't feel taboo about talking about their own mental health symptoms. And again, we only do that by talking about it more and more in conversation.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you all for attending today. If you or any of your fellow instructors are interested in presenting for our Learning and Growing webinar series, please submit your proposals to the Learning and Growing website, which I'm going to go ahead and link in the chat now for easy access. We will be emailing you a link to view the recording of this webinar once it becomes available, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.